What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Hello, welcome to Talking Football Live. Playoffs! I'm Chris Ryan. I'm filling in for Kevin Clark today. Kevin is in a walking boot. But here's the thing about hosting live videos in December. You got to play hurt. I'm here with Robert Mays, the Bengal, and Danny Kelly, the Space Needle. We are talking about playoffs. Are you in or are you out? We're going to be looking at a bunch of teams, seeing about their chances, seeing about their hopes and dreams. But let's talk about some nightmares first, all right? Let's talk about some teams that are just out of it, man. And I want to talk about the team that is the most out of any sports franchise
in recent memory.
That is the winless Cleveland Browns. Mays, I want to ask you this to start with. Is tanking in the NFL morally questionable? Look how these guys are getting hurt.
So I agree with what they've done. I feel like having a plan is better than not having one at all, even if that plan involves losing every single game. But if you look at some of the moves they've made on the offensive line especially, not bringing back Mitchell Schwartz, guys that aren't necessarily stars but keep you at a level of competency that keeps your quarterback safe, that keeps the rest of your team actually moving forward.
Yeah.
That part is a little bit of a gray area for me. Because how many teams that we can remember have gone through 4 quarterbacks in a single season?
Right.
That part of it is an issue. But I also think that if you're going to go 0-16, you might as well get as many draft picks as you can, trade everybody away, build up these resources, and they've done that.
Yeah, they got Jamie Collins, so they have that to look forward to. What's the biggest upside? What's the one bright spot for the Browns this year?
Well, I mean, I think obviously getting some of their young guys experience is huge, and we talked about how Terrell Pryor probably wouldn't have happened if they were trying to compete. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, because they're playing so many young guys. I think they had like 14 guys in their rookie class or something ridiculous like that. So, they're getting all their young guys in there, a lot of experience, and that's going to pay off, I think.
Was there anybody else in the Browns really quickly that you said, hey, all right, this guy, I like this guy. I can't wait to watch him for the next 5 or 6 years?
I mean, they have some pretty good talent. I'm really looking forward to watching Corey Coleman play down the stretch.
Those two, the combination
Coleman
of them, I think the way they play off each other also is pretty complimentary.
Yeah.
I think that they're going to be pretty formidable.
So as long as they can get somebody to throw them the ball, they'll be in the Super Bowl in a couple
that's
years.
the question, and has been for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
Let's quickly run through the other teams that are completely out. Mays, the 49ers. Will Chip Kelly be coaching this team next year?
I think he should. I mean, if you look at that roster, I feel like there's really no other team in the league you could argue is the second most barren, aside from San Francisco.
Right.
I mean, the Bears are pretty terrible.
Was this intentional, though?
I don't think it was intentional. It wasn't the same as the Cleveland Browns. I mean,
when
they were
all your
trying
dudes
to do
retire, I guess you can call it tanking.
Looking at what they've done, and even Colin Kaepernick has played decent under Chip Kelly.
That's another thing.
He's gotten about as much from what they have as any coach probably could this season.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with Robert. It's their roster is terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, they've had a couple of really bad draft years. They haven't had many free agents to speak of. Torrey Smith is kind of a misfit in that offense.
Poor Torrey Smith.
Yeah.
I just want to go break him out of there. We need to stage some sort of
Eagles
elaborate
traded for him,
heist.
apparently. Or
They should have.
That would have been better. Yeah. So, I think he stays. They probably give him another year. It's not like he's done anything super incompetent like Tom Sula was doing. I think it's just give it a little time.
All right, other teams that are all the way out we know are the Jaguars and the Jets. Of those two teams, who do you think has a brighter future?
That's actually a really good question. I think it's Jacksonville just because if you look at the Jets, they actually made a bunch of moves to go all in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
They have less cap room than any other team in the league right now, which when you're looking at a team that's near the bottom, that's not a good thing. You want some sort of flexibility moving forward. And the Revis contract, even Muhammad Wilkerson's deal now, you look at all those together, they have absolutely none.
Yeah. They spent a lot of money on that secondary, and it didn't really pan out. I'm so reticent to talk about Jacksonville because I feel like I've said they're going to be
this
good
all the time,
for
right?
4 years
If you just stick to a take, though, and then eventually it pays off, you're like, look, I was brave. I had courage.
And Jacksonville is not necessarily, they have a lot of cap room just because they haven't signed any of their guys in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But they also don't necessarily have a ton of young pieces to build around. And Jalen Ramsey's a good player, but they spent a lot of money in free agency comparatively for them, too.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not as if they have this core of guys that you're excited about. Allen Robinson, Jalen Ramsey, and the list doesn't go much further than that.
Any hot seat action there for Bowles or Gus Bradley?
Oh, yeah.
Gus Bradley, I feel
Bradley's
like
got to be gone.
You have to this year. I mean, as much as people love Gus Bradley, he hasn't made that defense appreciably better despite getting a ton of new talent.
Right. Yeah.
So I just think that he's gotten his chance.
I have an idea. Let's talk about some good teams.
Sure.
Works for me.
That's
The Dolphins are one of the most interesting teams to me this year because this was a team that was losing a little bit in the beginning. Tannehill's still trying to put together a suitable, stable career. But other experts, you guys included, were like, you know what, the Dolphins have some stuff going on here. Gase is a really good coach. And lo and behold, 6 wins on the trot. Mace, do you think the Dolphins are in or out in the playoffs this year?
I think they get in, and maybe that's me just wanting something new, because one of the other teams we'll talk about later is just a mainstay that I'm kind of tired of dealing with. But Miami, after that Cincinnati game on Thursday night, I remember watching it and thinking, this is it. This is it for this season for Miami and probably for Ryan Tannehill. They have a choice to make about him at the end of the year. They can pick up his option and move forward or get out from under it without much consequence. So I thought that maybe we were headed that direction. And what you've seen with them on offense, the line is playing great. They're running the ball extremely well. And I feel like they have more weapons than we thought they did.
Danny, one of the themes of this year that I'm going to make up right now is really talented big arm quarterbacks who get reined in a little bit and it works out. So whether it's Stafford, but in Tannehill's case, Gase started to ask him to do things that were just like a little bit more in the in the more comfortable part of this game. And it seems like it's really paid off.
Yeah, and it helps a lot that they have a run game now to help support him. He's not doing everything. It's not all on his shoulders. And Devontae Parker is another guy who's kind of interesting going like down. He's kind of disappeared for a big stretch of the year. But he's back now, and with him and I always screw up the name, Jarvis Landry,
not Landry Jones.
With him and Jarvis Landry, they have kind of a good balance of like a big red zone threat guy and then like a move the chains, third down guy. You can throw it, and he's like
Kenny Stills is a big play guy.
True.
I mean, he's their third wide receiving option by a long shot. Yeah. That's nice. That's a luxury.
Yeah. Landry is one of those guys that he's one of the players I can actually like be okay with you throwing it behind the sticks because he is a beast after the catch.
Getting extra yards.
Yeah. So I don't know. They've got kind of an interesting mix on offense, and Gase. We all love Gase, and so it's interesting to see them go because they started out 1-4.
And this is another team. We'll talk about the Cowboys later, but just like another team where it's like, you know what's important? Offensive line play.
Yeah.
Look at all the teams that have spent big on it, whether it's Oakland, Dallas, now Miami. They have 3 first-round picks. They spent big on Brandon Albert in free agency. The teams that throw a lot of resources into that area of their roster, they're seeing the dividends.
Yeah,
and I don't think it's an accident.
Going to be pretty high, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Danny, Miami Dolphins in or out?
I got them out, and it's basically flip-flopped with Robert just based on who I think is going to make it in. But I do think they're a really good team, interesting team down sort of the last 5-6 games or whatever. How many are there? 5 games left?
5 games left.
So, I mean,
4
I like
games left.
Four games left, yeah.
For them, okay.
Yeah. And they close out at Baltimore, home to Arizona, in Buffalo, and home to the Pats on January 1st.
That's kind of a rough draw for them.
Yeah.
I mean, I like them, but I think the team that we're going to talk about next is ahead of them.
Well, let's talk about the defending champions. Huh? How about that?
Works for me.
Yeah.
High altitude, a lot of decision making happening in the
62-yard field goals.
Doesn't bother Trevor Siemian. Maze, are you surprised by Trevor Siemian's play? Are you like, did you expect this?
Not especially. I think that he's done a decent job. I mean, he has 2 really good receivers, and I think they help him out a lot. That offense is well tailored to him. He's not asked to do a ton. A lot of these young quarterbacks, I feel like, have shown a level of competence, but are kind of disappointing when it all comes down to it. They are going to hold these teams back in the long run, but they played a little better than I think we thought.
So do you think the Denver Broncos are in or out, though?
I think they're out because that offense still isn't where it needs to be if it's going to not be carried by that defense. And the defense, I know their offense was bad last year, but the defense was transcendently great. Yeah. It's not anymore. It's a very good unit led by some great pass rushers and excellent corners. But up the middle, it's not the same. You can run on them. You can exploit their linebackers in coverage. It's not a leakless unit anymore.
Right. Danny, you're a little bit more confident about the Broncos.
I'm a little more bullish on them. I think, well, number one, they still lead the NFL in sacks.
Yeah.
They are probably the best pass rush in the NFL just based on Von Miller, what he does for everyone else on that line. So I think they still have that ability to take over a game based on just their pass rush is ridiculously good. And I think that Siemian makes enough big plays. I think we saw it against the Chiefs. He made a few shot plays where they're throwing it deep. It's not like their offense is totally neutered. It's not very good. But it's like they can make shot plays at times.
The line isn't very good. The running game hasn't been very good. And that's the problem. If you don't have a quarterback that can be the centerpiece of your offense, you hopefully can lean on the running game, and they haven't been able to all year.
No. And they're going to have a tough going into the stretch here. They get the Jags next, but then they play Titans in Tennessee. They host the Patriots. They go to Kansas City, and then another great New Year's Day game. They host the Raiders. That could be a huge game for them.
That's tough.
For Oakland, you're playing for maybe a number 1 seed in the conference. So
and for
there's some at stake.
The Broncos, I mean, the only solace they can take from this schedule is basically everybody else's schedule is almost just as hard.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Staying in the AFC West, which is obviously, I think, most people would agree is the best division of football this year, right?
I think so, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the Chiefs.
Yeah.
You're never gonna like get. This is what happens with Andy Reid teams and with Alex Smith quarterback teams. Is like the passion is not spilling out of me. Do you think
but
the
that's
Chiefs?
exactly my reaction to it. It's like,
I know they have a good
They're
defense.
Kansas City.
I know they
They're
have
the
some
Chiefs.
interesting pieces. I know. But like I've just watched so many 3rd and 8s start as a 4-yard pass, and then they're like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
With this team, you'd hope that they just stumble into it one year. And I don't know if this is necessarily the year. I think a couple years ago when the running game was really clicking is when they were most dangerous. Right. They don't have that anymore. But Tyreek Hill has given them a new dimension. I know that comes with its own problems. But they have a couple new pieces offensively that I think could be the difference, even with that running game not playing as well.
Yeah, and they got the pass rush, too. Again, it's like, to me, that's a huge factor late in the season. And Dee Ford has been way better than anyone expected, I think, this year.
How many teams in the league are looking at that team like, really? They got Dee Ford now, too?
Yeah.
They needed another guy? Right. We have no one.
Yeah, Houston's back. Tamba Hali is just, silently or quietly being solid still.
Like tons of playmakers in the defensive backfield. Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't know. That defense just gives them a chance. It kind of reminds me of the early Seahawks where their offense hadn't quite figured it out yet, but there's such a good defense that it just doesn't matter if their offense isn't that exciting.
And they know they need to take the ball away. That's what I appreciate. I remember watching the Bears in the mid-2000s, and there was just this sense of urgency because they knew they weren't going to score offensively. You need the ball.
Yeah.
And when you have guys like Marcus Peters, that's how he's thinking all the time.
Yeah. So and aren't they the best turnover ratio or turnover differential team in the NFL?
Comfortably.
Yeah.
Do you think the Chiefs are in or out?
I have them in.
Okay.
Yeah.
8-3 second at AFC West. Do you think they're in or out?
I think they're in. I like that defense pretty much more than I like Denver's at this point, which is hard to imagine.
Right.
But I just think what they have up front, not only the rushers, but the interior guys too can just play. It's well coached. I feel like they're really dangerous.
There's been a lot of talk about the dip in ratings, maybe a sagging of the monocultural hold that the NFL might have over all of our brains. There's a lot of reasons for that. They have definitely. This is sweeps month, man. Look at this Chiefs back end. At the Falcons versus the Raiders at home against the Titans, home against the Broncos, at the Chargers. That's like appointment television every single week for the friggin' Chiefs.
I'm in.
Let's talk briefly about the Chargers. Every year I think that you see a team where you're like, not to sound like Clint Eastwood and Unforgive Him and Deserve doesn't have anything to do with this, but like I just think that the Chargers deserve. Can we just put them in the AFC South for a year so that we can see a little bit
I've been
more
saying
Phillip
that for
Rivers?
like a month. Poor Phillip Rivers. I mean, that guy is playing out of his mind again. And you think about the injuries and just how many tiny bad breaks they've gotten. If Melvin Gordon doesn't fumble inside 2 minutes like 4 times, who knows how good this team could be?
I know and also just watching Phillip Rivers is one of the most unique experiences in football.
Right.
Just like so many of his
the way
mechanics.
He throws the football.
It's just like I want to keep getting that. And
There's
also,
never been anybody like him.
such a trash talker.
I love that.
I just want to see it happen. Let's talk about the AFC South, where I would like to move San Diego, even though it's it's Southern California. We can be like a little
Do
bit
that
more...
or wipe it off the face of the earth. Those are our 2 options.
Yeah. AFC South has been a pretty interesting division. It usually is like really the redheaded stepchild, and I'm redheaded, so I can say that. But I want to talk a little bit about one of my favorite teams this year, the Exotic Smash Mouth in Tennessee. A Danny Kelly special. You love those guys.
Well, I talked about how they might be kind of fun this year early on, and it's actually working. It's crazy.
I did not believe you. That was not how I felt.
They changed our definition of fun in the NFL, right? Because we saw teams speeding it up. We saw teams freaking out with like all these different high tempo spread offenses, and they're like, no, man, DeMarco Murray, a little bit of Delaney Walker and some DeMarco Murray.
Another team that quietly added pieces to its offensive line.
Yeah.
They have 2 first-round picks at tackle. They signed Ben Jones in free agency, which no one ever cares about Ben Jones. No one knows who Ben Jones is.
Right.
But when you can go from having one of the 3 worst centers in the league to having an above-average one, it makes all the difference. That's huge for them this year.
And they've been playing out without Chance Warmack, too.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing in Mariota this year.
Well, I mean, everyone talks about young quarterbacks and how it's going to be very hard for them to make the jump to the pro style of thing. And he's actually been really good. Like, they run a lot of play action stuff where he's turning his back to the defense, which is always tough for a young quarterback because most of those guys are used to just taking the snap and reading the defense or whatever. He's running pro style stuff, play action. They're doing a little bit of sort of the read option stuff, but it's mostly just downhill running and with
big
Derrick
shots
Henry.
off that.
Yeah, and so they've managed to put up really good numbers with sort of just a receiver group that, I mean, you asked me yesterday, is Rashard Matthews good? Like, I don't.
I have no idea. He might be, but there's really no way to know at
Rashard
this point.
Matthews is definitely like the randomly generated computer name.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
For wide receiver.
To be clear, Delaney Walker is good, so that definitely helps.
Titans finish out at home with the Broncos, at Kansas City, at Jacksonville, and then New Year's Day against the Texans at home, which will probably be an in or out game.
I hope so. If I have to watch Houston in a playoff game, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life.
Your heart says Titans in. What
I
does your
want
head
it
say?
so bad, but this is just
Yeah.
a team that every time I want to believe in them, they give me a reason not to.
Yeah.
You know, the game they played against Indy, the 2 games they played against Indy, I want to see them win a game that actually matters because I haven't
Yeah.
seen them do that yet.
Do the thing they did against the Packers where they score 40-something points. And,
Absolutely.
You know, but the other point about the Titans that's important is they're really good in the red zone.
Yeah.
They're the number 1 team in terms of turning red zone trips into touchdowns in the NFL right now. Mariota, I think that still the stat is he hasn't thrown an interception in the red zone in his career. And him being a mobile quarterback makes him so difficult to defend down there. You know, they can do the bootleg, they can do design runs with him if they want, you know, sprint outs, things like that. Plus they have Walker, who's a good dual threat guy. You know, Henry, DeMarco Murray, they've got all kinds of weapons.
Derrick
in the red
Henry,
zone.
10 years older than he actually is because he played for Nick Saban. I want to talk a little bit about a team that I think they've been to the red zone this year. It's the Baltimore Ravens.
I don't know if that's true. I think all of their touchdowns are for like 50 yards out.
Do you think that when like Joe Flacco arrives in the red zone, it's like Jimmy Simpson showing up in Westworld for the first time? He's like, what is this place?
Who's his Logan? Is he
His Logan?
John Harbaugh just in his ear telling him to do terrible
It's
stuff?
Cam Cameron still calling him on a landline. Are you think the Ravens are in or out?
I think they're out. Their offense is just so bad.
Yeah.
And I love that
Yeah.
defense. Part of me kind of laments the fact that Sharice Wright was playing for Jimmy Smith against Dallas because I wanted to see both those units at full strength go at it. I mean, their defense has been so much better than I thought they were going to be coming into the year. But when you cannot score points, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, their offensive MVP is their kicker.
That's
Yeah,
great.
I mean, that's
great.
really
That
true.
sucks. I hate football.
They have no running game. Flacco was not playing very well.
No.
Quarterback's year off of ACL is an underrated injury. I think it
Yeah.
takes a while for guys to come back from that. But he just hasn't been nearly the guy he was when he was playing pretty well.
I saw this stat this morning. The Ravens are averaging 5 yards a play, which is worse than the 49ers.
Oh, wow.
That tells you how
That
bad.
says a lot about their defense.
Yeah?
Yeah,
In or out for the Ravens?
I'm out on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Valerie. Let's talk a little bit about the team that we always talk about when you talk about the Ravens because they're their biggest rival, Pittsburgh Steelers. Big Ben. Here's the thing about this team. I have it written down here. A healthy Big Ben paired with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell creates possibly the league's scariest offense. I feel like you could have said this at any time this year,
Yeah.
and everybody's waiting for it to be true. You know what I mean?
We
It is
still
an
haven't seen
electric
it.
offense, but because of injuries and
Yeah.
because of this, that, or the other thing, or like, you know, it's just they haven't been able to put it all together this year, despite Todd Haley mixing up the medicine.
You know I love Todd Haley.
You're believing though.
I believe just because I still think that version of them is possible. I think we can see it moving forward. And it's not even Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown and Big Ben. Think about how Sammy Coates broke all his fingers.
Yeah.
It just seems like something always goes wrong with this team.
Wait, Sammy Coates broke all his fingers?
I don't know. Like, he broke 7 of them, apparently, because he can't catch footballs anymore.
Yeah.
You watched them at the beginning of the season. He was just tearing down the field, making big plays. They don't have that element anymore. But what I saw from them against Indy, that gives me a little bit of hope. Ben's healthier now. They have Brown and Bell. It just seems like we have an offense that if they get in would be the scariest offense you could probably face.
I think that most playoff teams, you know, they want to be healthy playing in a dome against the
Right.
Indianapolis defense. I mean, if you could do that, it would be Tecmo
That's
Bowl.
the best possible scenario.
What do you see when you see Pittsburgh? You see a team that's in or out?
I have them in. I have them winning the North. And this year, I think sort of the main, just the whole NFL right now is very unbalanced. There's very few balanced teams right now. You're either really good on offense and terrible on defense or
Yeah.
vice versa. And the Steelers are actually sort of balanced.
Yeah.
They have a pretty good defense. It's not, you know, you're not going to write home about how exciting it is or whatever, but they kind of get it done. They're averaging giving up 20 points per game, which is, I think, 10th in the NFL right now.
Are the Steelers the best candidate for getting hot at the right time team?
Oh, yeah,
I think so.
absolutely.
2 in a row,
Yeah.
6 and 5. They've got a pretty, like, as these schedules go down the pike, they've got home
easy-ish.
Giants at Buffalo, at Cincinnati, home for the Ravens.
They can
home
win
for
all
the
those
Browns,
games.
and
I mean, they
can
can easily win all those games.
Yeah.
If you look at it, I believe they're 11th in DVOA on defense right now.
Yeah.
I think by season's end, you could easily see them in the top 10. And that would be, I believe, if Seattle gets a little better, them and Seattle will be the only two teams that have that.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
has the makings of a Super Bowl contender.
I think we have obviously the best team, the best 4 teams we're going to be talking about at the end of the show. But you just said that. I mean, like, there's a weird part of me that's like, is this going to be a Steelers-Seahawks Super Bowl maybe? Like, there's like a weird vibe where I think we're very focused on the Cowboys, we're very focused on the Patriots, and or the Raiders, and I just wonder whether
just
there's
red herrings.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, this is going to happen for one of these teams, and Pittsburgh seems like it's a candidate.
My preseason Super Bowl was Arizona and Pittsburgh. And when you watch the Cardinals all year, they just don't look the same. When I watch Pittsburgh, I know their offense hasn't been quite what we thought it was going to be, but it's not a lost cause like Arizona is in my mind. I still think that we can see that by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And they gave the Cowboys a run for their money. I mean,
Yes, they
that
did.
game came down to a couple big runs by Ezekiel Elliott, and if they stop those runs, who knows what happens? But yeah, I mean, they can roll with anybody, I think.
I like that Mays on his. You guys just finally declared the Cardinals dead this week.
Yeah.
That was
it took me a while.
You're sitting on.
I did not want to come to terms with
You're
that.
sitting like on the iceberg, watching the Titanic going down, and like,
Don't
I
give
don't
up
think
on
this
me."
boat's gonna make it to America, guys. Let's talk a little bit about the NFC East, which, other than the NFC West, has been like one of the most exciting, electric, competitive divisions in football,
Yeah.
and maybe the most surprising team is the Redskins, right? Because there was a lot of questions. It's just the institutional chaos in that franchise. I think always
Right.
suggests that this is a team that's never going to live up to even their internal expectations, to say nothing of ours. But they've just been like a really consistent, competitive football team all year long. What do you think of the Redskins? Do you think they're in or out on this one?
I have them in, and I think I totally agree with you. It's like every time I think they're going to fold, they actually they play a really good game.
That was like a good loss on Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.
Right.
That offense is dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it yesterday. Just they have probably the best skill group in the NFL in terms of,
I agree.
You know, Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis at tight end. They've got a good receiver group with Deshaun Jackson, Jamison Crowder, and Pierre Garçon.
I think that Pierre Garçon is the 4th name mentioned in that group is crazy.
Yeah, I actually like him a lot. And, you know, Kirk Cousins is kind of a cornball in terms of like just the things he says, his little catchphrases or whatever, but he's played pretty well.
Subpar meme producer, or maybe a great one.
I mean,
but
it
just
depends
like,
on
Pretty good.
he's
producer.
actually
how you look
okay,
at
As
but
far
it's-
as quarterbacks go, if it's not Cam Newton's pepper jack shoes, it's probably Kirk Cousins yelling
It's
at
weird
people.
that you can't make a meme and be cool. You know what I mean?
No,
Like
that's
you
true.
can't be like
Yeah.
like nobody's like, wow, Kirk Cousins, what a legend. It's like, no, Kirk Cousins is a
It's like
dork.
giving yourself your own nickname.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's not going to work.
Oh, you know that he's done that.
Oh,
Call me
absolutely.
the Cuz. Deshaun Jackson's like, I got you, man. The Redskins, I like their schedule going home. It's at the Cardinals, at the Eagles, home against the Panthers, at Chicago, and then another New Year's Day classic against the Giants, which could be a play-in, right?
Yeah.
I think that let's talk about the Giants, right? So you've got the Redskins in. Do you have the Redskins in?
I do,
So
yeah.
we have the Redskins in. What do we think about these 8-3 New York Football Giants
I
that
have
nobody
no idea
seems
how
to
that's possible.
respect?
It still doesn't make any sense. You
Yeah.
wrote about this recently. Are the Giants any good?
That's the question.
have
I don't
no
really know.
idea.
Yeah.
I feel like that like part of I'm joking about the memes, but part of it is like, despite winning 2 Super Bowls in extraordinary fashion, Eli like still has this like he is gonna throw this football the wrong way.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's
Yes.
gonna turn around and throw it towards the other end zone. Like it's like there's always something with the Giants where you're waiting for the banana peel slip.
There's something about them, whether it's the helmet or whatever, that as soon as they're on my screen, I just go cold.
But but that like I know why I do because I grew up in Philadelphia and I just watching Joe Morris get 3.5 yards per carry for most of my childhood. That was why I'm bored by them. But this is like kind of a, I mean, it's weirdly electric team when you put
Right.
Odell in there.
He's enough.
Yeah.
And
They
I
can
mean, that's
yeah.
all that matters sometimes, that he's going to make 1 or 2 plays a game that could win you the football game. It's crazy.
They have a top 10 defense right now. They have a good pass rush. It's heating up, too.
Yeah.
Olivier Vernon is starting to heat up. JPP is playing really well. They can stop the run. They have 2 big guys on the inside that are really good, Hankins and Snacks, Harrison.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and their secondary is getting better. Like Eli Apple's playing really well. Janoris Jenkins is Jenkins. Landon Collins
Landon
is playing
Collins is
really
Defensive
well.
Player of the Year candidate.
Someone,
He's
yeah,
been
that's what I've
fantastic.
been hearing. So
Janoris Jenkins' incredible Twitter account.
He's a character, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's what we can say about Janoris Jenkins.
Tons of sportsmanship on display on that Twitter account. Giants are 8-3 currently. They go to Pittsburgh. Ugh. They are home against the Cowboys, home against the Lions. They go to Philly. They go to Washington to end the season. In or out?
I think they're out. Okay. I mean, there's one other team in the NFC that I feel a little bit better about, wild card wise. I know the math probably doesn't play out that way. They're 8-3. It's going to be hard for them not to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
But again, they're just so uninspiring to me.
That's kind of why I have them in.
Yeah.
It's just because they're set up really well right now to make it in, just based on their record. And I think they have this is what I wrote about last week, is they have the sort of formula to win late in the season. They can stop the run, they can rush the passer, and they can score with electric plays with Odell. Their offense isn't good. They don't have a run game.
It's so mediocre.
This
it's
is sort of
painfully mediocre.
Flip side to what you were kind of joking. We were joking about with Ben getting to play in a dome, and it's all temperature controlled. And he gets to play against the tackling dummies that are the Colts. But how much credence do you guys lend to the gets a little cold, falls a little harder to throw, hitting the ground hurts a little more? Because that's what I was kind of curious about with Dak. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But some of these guys who are coming into their first real winter, and winter is here.
Yeah,
Shout out to Game of Thrones. But winter is here. But are these guys? Is there anybody here who you think could have a wobble? Any of these teams that you think, maybe that they're gonna have to adjust to the cold weather and the tighter games?
It's a really good question. My first instinct would be Oakland because they're just new, and I think their offense sputters more than people think. They
Derek
go 3 and out at a rate.
Hands.
Yeah, but with them, the nice part is that their running game is really physical. When they want to lean on it, they can. So it'd be a team that throws the ball well, but doesn't necessarily have a power running game. New England comes to mind.
Maybe Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta's a good one, but I also like the backs that they have.
I like their backs a lot.
I think the difference between this year's Atlanta team and previous ones is they just have more ways to beat you.
Yeah.
Julio's still there, but they can exploit with their running backs if they want to. They have a deep threat in Taylor Gabriel.
Yeah.
There are more avenues to just potency for them now.
Well, we'll talk about the weatherproof Atlanta Falcons in a second, but let's talk about some teams that are probably pretty well versed at playing in the cold. The Lions get to play inside. I want to talk a little bit about the NFC North, which is a very weird division this year.
It's been bizarre. As someone who watches a lot of it because the Bears are unfortunately a part of my life, it's been so strange to watch Green Bay sputter, Minnesota go out to that start, and every week it just seems, is Matthew Stafford the best quarterback in this division right now? Those questions are just not what I thought I was going to be asking.
Is Matthew Stafford the best quarterback in that division?
No.
I agree.
Rodgers is heating up.
Yeah.
And that is the question right now because...
How hot?
Yeah, I feel like Minnesota, we can just almost count them out at this point.
Yeah.
They
That offensive line is
anything
untenable.
on
There's
offense.
no way they can sustain anything with that group.
They just have free falling. And it's crazy because at the beginning of the year, we were like, this is a top 5 team.
So
maybe
balanced,
more.
yeah. I think losing your offensive coordinator.
That was weird.
Losing your offensive coordinator because he was just
division.
done.
Yeah,
He's like, you know what? I'm okay.
I don't want to do this
really
anymore.
Intense. Packers are 5-6. They're third in the NFC North. They finish with Texans and Seahawks at home, go to Chicago, Vikings visit, then they go to the Lions for what will probably be a huge game on January 1st. Again, nice idea, NFL. Put all these games on January 1st. Packers in or out?
I got the Packers out.
I have them in. And looking at this schedule, I see it, and I see it so clearly. Them going to Detroit in Week 17, both of those teams sitting at 8-7, and that game to get to 9-7 is for the division.
I just think, can I just say that I think Matt Stafford's awesome.
He's playing really well.
Cougar ball is just working, and I don't really love the new reality where everybody is just going to replace the run game with these 5-yard passes, but hey,
you need the right personnel to make that happen,
and
they do. Golden
Yeah.
Tate is maybe, aside from Jarvis Landry, the best after-the-catch receiver in the league.
Yeah.
Theo Riddick is a star. He's been so good this season. I like that idea of kind of marginalizing the impact your quarterback can have in a good and bad way, but you need the playmakers to make that offense go.
Yeah.
I feel like the Lions, this is sort of a hokey, intangible thing, but I think the Lions have started to believe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're
How could
so
you not
good.
believe in Jim Caldwell?
Right, he's so inspiring. But I mean, honestly, they've been really, really good in the ends of games. I think they've won all their games have come with fourth quarter comebacks, or almost all of them anyway. And
Do you think Jim Caldwell gives any given Sunday speeches, but they're his favorite kinds of salad?
I will say.
My favorite kinds of salad are
He has
kale
been way
salad,
more animated this year than at any
mixed
other point that I've
green
seen
salad.
him. He's
He-
he's feeling good.
I feel like the Lions have been, on a national level, confidently quiet. There's just not a lot of huge mistakes, not a lot of glaring, let's watch these dorks run out of bounds at the wrong time. And they're winning closer games, And I just feel like it's really kind of amazing to watch somebody who is kind of like the gunslinger from Georgia. He's just got a big arm. He's looking for Calvin downfield. He's like, no, he's just like picking people apart now.
Yeah. It's crazy how long he's been in our lives. Like, the fact that this is year 8 of Matthew Stafford, or it's year 7, or year 8, 2009 to right now. I mean, that is just so hard to believe.
Let's talk a little bit about this is my favorite team to watch outside of the Eagles and the Raiders this year. Obviously, the Eagles is more of a self-flagellating act on my part. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
What do you say about this team?
First of all, it's always just a miracle of natural wonder when they actually get to play a game in Tampa, because you just
the
never
weather
know.
actually holds.
It's like sea level rising, and then
No one should live
when
in Tampa.
they do
Tampa should
play,
not be a place.
it just is like, I think I like this team. They're kind of like the Oklahoma City Thunder when Durant and Westbrook won it.
Yeah.
They feel like a
good
college team that's just like a halftime speech can get them over the hump, or some crazy Jameis play, or a huge interception, like an amazing Mike Evans catch. Like, it's a very like widescreen team. I like them a lot. Are they going to be playing in the playoffs?
I think so. I don't know why I did this to myself.
I know why you do
every
it,
season
because
I
you
do
have Gerald McCoy sheets.
I have a poster of him on my wall. But yeah, Oklahoma City is actually a really good comparison, because on offense, they kind of have that feel where Jameis and Mike Evans are Durant and Westbrook, and it doesn't matter who Danny Green is, as long as those two guys are playing, it gives them a shot. And that's what I'm excited about with them. I just think that Jameis is playing really well. Not making as many mistakes, understanding that Evans can take you wherever you want to go. And with that defense playing decent, I think that duo is enough to give them a shot.
A lot of playmakers on that defense.
Yeah, and I think I picked them to be out based on the teams are ahead of them right now. Giants and Redskins just kind of, I think, are set up more like clearly to make it there.
They're 2 games higher in the standings. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
But I mean, I watched this team last week against the Seahawks hold that offense to 3 points. You know, they scored Seahawks defense got a safety to push it to a big 5 points.
Yeah.
But I mean, they shut down a pretty good offense team that had been playing well on offense, and so.
Well, they have an interesting schedule. A lot of these, we're saying in and out
one
all
way
the
to put
time,
it.
but a lot of this is academic. They go to San Diego, tough game.
That's hard.
Then they're home to the Saints. They go to Dallas. They have the Saints
again?
in New Orleans, and then they host the Panthers on New Year's Day. Let's talk a little bit about the Saints. I'm really into this now. Ever since the Rams-Saints game the other day, I really like coach chip on the shoulder games.
It was amazing
That
to watch.
doesn't happen enough, where a coach is like personally invested in running up the score and embarrassing the other team.
It was so great, and they did.
That was real Buddy Ryan stuff right out there.
I enjoyed it more than I ever thought I would, and just watching him fist pump and just in the least cool way possible every way he celebrated.
All the Saints players afterwards were like, yeah, that was pretty cool. We beat the Rams. But
I love
like Sean was really into it.
And that team, they can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you want to run up the score, how many teams have the firepower to make that happen against what's a pretty decent defense? And that's why I think that if New Orleans did somehow sneak in, a lot of teams in the NFC would be a little frightened.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to play them at this point because, I mean, the stuff they do on offense, first of all, is so cool. They have 3 receivers essentially that are all
Michael Thomas just out of nowhere.
Yeah. And Breeze, again, like he's the superstar, but yet he's still sort of underrated because we don't talk about him all that much. He's having another ridiculous year.
Right.
You know, he's on pace to pass for 5,000 yards, like his, I don't know what, 5th time in the NFL. And so their offense just continually does stuff well, but then their defense has started to play pretty well too, which
That's
is
been really noticeable,
surprising.
yeah.
So
Cam Jordan's playing out of his mind. And if you can get some play up front and have an offense that plays that well, that's where you become dangerous. 1 or 2 big sacks a game that can swing a couple drives, that's all you need.
Exactly.
Well, the Saints are a team that's sort of coming on now. Let's talk about a team that started really high and then kind of came a little bit back down to earth, but are still 7-4, still lead the NFC South, and that's the Falcons. They have, I mean, we've talked a lot about here, like where you get down to these tight margins, and it's the matter of having Julio Jones or not having Julio Jones, or having a Jameis Winston who seems to believe in himself in that level or not. What do you think the Falcons' chances are? They're probably in, right? But how far can they go?
I'm worried about the defense. I love the offense. I think it's for real. You know, we saw that second half slide last year. I don't think we're in for another one of those.
Yeah,
no.
But defensively, they had some pieces, and now even those pieces are gone. Desmond Trufant's out for the season. Adrian Claiborne's hurt. So even though they've gotten more from a guy like Vic Beasley, I still think that they just don't have the horses on that side of the ball to compete with the real class of the NFC.
Yeah, they have to win in a shootout.
Yes.
You know, and that puts a lot of pressure on your offense every week, you know, to win with like 30, 40 points because they're giving up, I think, 27 points a game. which is
typically in the NBA, you need a team that's the championship teams are ones that are. It's not, like, let's just say top 10 on offense and defense.
Right.
Falcons are 3rd ranked offense and 27th ranked defense.
A lot of teams in the league right now look like that.
Yeah.
Though. That's
A
the
lot
problem,
do,
is
and
that
that's what makes it
outside of a
different.
team like Seattle, I mean, Dallas is a bottom 7 defense. And Oakland is not playing well on defense.
No.
The Patriots' defense isn't very good. So there aren't that many teams that have balance. So
Right.
I am worried about the defense, but I don't think that necessarily excludes it from the conversation.
So Falcons in, but maybe not going too far just because they don't have that defense. I want to take a quick second before we get to the sort of upper echelon of the league and talk a little bit about the fact that the Falcons are playing in New Orleans on New Year's Day. I want to know whether or not you think you're a Saints fan. Do you just go full Fury Road from the night before right into this
Fury
game?
Road.
Silver
Or
paint on everybody.
Do you think that there's a little bit of a come down because it's New Year's Eve in New Orleans and then next day you got to get it up for the Saints? Could be if you beat the Saints, you get into the playoffs. Like, what's your move there?
take a power nap at the tailgate.
Okay, that's
Or-
good.
yeah,
Here's
you
what
know.
I'll say. New Orleans has broken me both physically and spiritually so many times.
Yeah.
I am never going
That's
to.
just because you love jazz.
I am never going to underrate the talents of the people in that city.
All right, let's talk about not the Final Four, but definitely the people who get first dibs on steak this year. And it's New England Patriots, Dallas Cowboys, Seattle Seahawks, and the Oakland Raiders. Let's start talking briefly about the Patriots. 9-2 in first. Not a very complicated the last few games. They host the Rams, they host the Ravens, they go to Denver, they host the Jets, and then they go to Miami on New Year's Day. I think they're in. But are they, like, is the runway clear for them to go to the Super Bowl?
I don't think so. This is an uninspiring Patriots team relatively to some that we've seen in the last 5 or 6 years. Offensively, they're obviously going to be good with Brady and the group they have there, but they don't terrify you right now. They still don't have a downfield option. Gronk, who knows how much you're going to get out of him moving forward.
Right.
And defensively, they're not very good. I mean, it's not as if they're struggling a little bit and you can see a path to them getting better by the season's end. They just don't have that many playmakers on that side of the ball.
It's almost like they're going in the wrong direction defensively, too.
Yeah.
It's like they're getting a little, because I agree with you, like, just as a general sense, they don't intimidate like they used to. The offense is good, clearly, but that's like a function of Brady being the best quarterback ever, and Gronk and Bennett seem to be hurt all the time. That, to me, is their offense this year. When they don't have those two guys in, it's kind of just dink and dunk, and they have to manufacture points. And I
And
don't
we'll
know
see what they can do moving forward. I mean, now they have Deion Lewis back. So you have that
That'll
Deion
help.
Lewis, James White. If you get Bennett and Gronk healthy, it's a fascinating group of guys, but they need all of those pieces in order to kind of manufacture drives.
Is Malcolm Mitchell the real deal? I mean,
No, I can tell you that right now.
No.
That's the problem.
There's always going to be like a Patriots guy who catches like one cool route, and they're like, "Well, they found
Yeah,
another
the Aaron
diamond in
Dobson
the
era.
rough."
Yeah.
there we go. Yeah.
Do you think that Bill Belichick is actively trolling himself and trying to make life harder for himself because he's so bored dominating
easy.
the NFL?
Wouldn't you? I mean, at a certain point,
That'd
you
be
probably
like,
need
that would
a
be
higher
kind of
degree
like
of
if you
difficulty.
blogged for 15 years and you were like, you know what, I've just decided I'm going to like type with only my left hand or something like that.
I truly believe that he was hoping he had to play Julian Edelman at quarterback early in the season.
I'm
he
sure
would have
you're
got
right.
so much perverse joy out of that.
I want to talk a little bit about the Raiders, probably one of the stories of the season, along with the Cowboys. Really quickly, if you were the NFL, do you want it to be Cowboys versus Patriots? Because that would be the first time that in the history of like America that most Americans would be cheering for the Cowboys, even if they don't already cheer for the Cowboys. Or do you want the story where these two legacy franchises, young teams, clash in the Super Bowl, Raiders, Cowboys?
I mean, I'm sick of the Patriots in the Super Bowl, so
Yeah.
you clearly go Raiders in this one. I think,
So
that
many
would just
points.
be so much fun.
Oh my God, watching those two offenses go at it in the Super
That'd be
Bowl would be
wild.
incredible.
And it would just be cool. I mean, just from like a TV point of view, like they'd have some cool options to do like the histories of these
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
teams, Like great franchise, storied franchise
Oh, the
histories,
documentaries leading up to it would be insane.
That would be the
Yeah.
best part. Plus, you get to talk about Al Davis,
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting just because with Oakland, this is a brand new version of them being good. They've never really been a high-powered offensive team. They've always liked to throw it deep, but it's like the staple of who they've been. But they played well on defense for most of their time. With Dallas, it's weirdly parallel to when they were good.
Yeah.
Great offensive line, amazing running back,
Right.
really good young quarterback.
Right.
Are you surprised by how good Oakland is this year?
Not necessarily. I thought their offense had a chance to be really good. I loved what they've done on the line. Clutch Osemele is one of my favorite players in the league.
Yeah.
Them bringing him in has given them a degree of physicality on offense they didn't have last season. Carr's taken a step, though. And that's the biggest change, is that he's now one of the upper echelon quarterbacks in the league. He's kind of on the brink of the top 5. And he gives them a chance to score 40 every single game because of that.
Are we not talking about Luke Skywalker hand enough? Isn't that like it's a pretty bad injury?
Yeah.
I mean, when that happened, I had flashes of Andy Dalton last year. Just the idea that you have all these pieces on offense, you're really rolling, and that can derail an entire season.
Yeah.
Matt McGloin, despite what they have for the receiver,
Is there
everything
a better
on the line,
backup quarterback name
no,
than Matt
absolutely
McGloin,
not.
by the way?
I mean, the most uninspiring option you could possibly come up with.
The Seahawks are doing that Seahawks thing where they keep getting better and better. They keep puncturing people's lungs. Everybody is crying after they play them. Even when they only score 5 points, you're like, I just really would not want to see that team in the playoffs.
Right.
Are you seeing the Seahawks in the Super Bowl, or is this the Seahawks team that just doesn't have enough going on the offensive side of the ball?
It's tough because the Seahawks do this thing where, like, for instance, they beat the Bills, Patriots at Patriots, and then who'd they beat? The Eagles, and then they lose this clunker to the Bucs. It's just sometimes you don't know what you're going to get from them, but generally speaking, the Seahawks get better as the year goes on. And when they get healthy, when they get Mike Bennett back, when they get Earl Thomas back, they're going to be really, really tough on defense. Like, they are the team, I think, right now that can stop the Cowboys. And so if they get to that point, to the NFC Championship, I think they have a pretty good chance.
There's always a playoff game. Sometimes it's a championship game, but usually it's a little bit earlier in the play, like a divisional game, where the game starts and you're just like, oh no, they were not ready for this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, where it's just like sometimes I remember that there was a Ravens-Patriots game where like Brady just got blitzed out of his mind, and it was like, man, they just did not have it to get together today. That's kind of what I am seeing for a Seahawks-Cowboys game, where it's just like, oh, you guys thought this was going to be fun. It's not going to be fun.
And I can't wait to watch that game if it happens. I mean, that's exactly right. I think that if you're Seattle, you've been the best defense in the league for 5 years. You are a contender. You're the class of the league. You go into Dallas for that game, there's
Nobody
that
believes
feeling.
in you. Everybody wants the Cowboys
They're
in
the
the Super Bowl.
underdog.
Oh, the chip on the shoulder is going to be out of.
And I love that. And I think if you're Earl Thomas or Cam Chancellor, you got to be thinking, we're the Seahawks. Like, I think they need to understand what's about to happen.
I think they're going to need to move the stands back a little bit if Dez and Richard Sherman are actually like matched up against each other.
See, the thing, they've had some good matchups in the past years, and that would be awesome. The other thing is, do you guys remember in the preseason, I think it was the first time that Elliott got on the field. It was against the Seahawks in the preseason, and that was the best preseason game I've ever seen, honestly. Elliott and Cam Chancellor were jawing at each other. Elliott was like showing no fear, like it was just great. Like,
I'm so excited. I want this to happen like tomorrow.
100%.
Why play the rest of the season?
I'm going to be so mad if this doesn't happen.
Let's just do a best of 7 between those two. That would be I couldn't imagine anything better than that.
Let's talk about the Cowboys a little bit. I think anecdotally, I have noticed just like a general kind of like buoyancy around the attention paid to the league because of like a marquee franchise like the Cowboys are. I literally feel my throat seizing up as I say these words.
I can't imagine how painful that is for you.
It is really crazy to watch, and you're just like, man, they're just great.
They're good. Yeah.
They have this, and we were talking about this yesterday before we did the show. This thing where they basically have like the Andrew Miller of football style of fourth quarter offense, where it's like they get the ball and they're up 7. And they're on their own 20, and there's like 6 minutes left. You might as well just go home.
Good night.
Because they're just going to pound it. And if you try and jump them, they will figure something out with Witten or Badez. It has been remarkable watching these guys this year, and they're actually really entertaining.
That's the thing. I mean, the Cowboys being good is one thing. Them being the most fun team in the league is another. And I look at the teams that have won Super Bowls recently and that have been the class of football. And it's the teams without defined weaknesses. It's the units that are just completely solid across the board. Denver's defense last year when Seattle was really good. And I think the flip side about Dallas right now, you watch that Baltimore game, and that was the team that we thought they're going to be able to slow them down the run game.
Right.
And the fact that they have options, and when the run game necessarily isn't clicking the way it does against other teams, now you have Dez. Now you have Dak Prescott's being able to pull plays. And that is what makes them so dangerous, that even when they can't be the exact team they want, they have other avenues.
You know why they're so dangerous right now? It's not just the run game, but Dak is like one of the best third down passers in the NFL right now. That's so huge, and that's the reason they were able to like just bleed the clock out, because they're not if the run game doesn't get you a first down every time, he can still hit that third down pass. And then it's just so demoralizing to play those guys.
The fact that Dez Bryant is the guy you can just tap in when you need a big play is absurd.
I think I heard Dilfer talking about this the other day, where it's like basically the kinds of adjustments that Dak is making in game are the kinds of adjustments that it takes veteran quarterbacks weeks to finally learn. You know what I mean? And it's like you can actually, you can watch him learn while he's playing. You'll see him sort of just be like, I need more protection up the middle, like against Baltimore, right?
Yeah.
Like he was just like, they are coming.
Yep.
He was doing that against Philly. It's just like, it's not that I don't think that they can lose, but there is like a real pixie dust spread on this team right now.
And he has so much help, and I feel like he's played very well. A lot of quarterbacks could, but every single time you see him play, it's never too big for him. He's never in a hurry,
So
and that's
calm.
the thing I've been most
And not
impressed
for
by.
nothing. If somebody does dump him on his shoulder, they do have a pretty good backup.
I was going to say, they're set up for, like the NFL season is a battle of attrition.
Yeah.
Really. And they're set up to, like, if they have some, like, catastrophic injury to their quarterbacks, like Tony Romo, who's all pro, you know?
What if Romo plays? Like, what if
Dude,
that
what if
happens?
Romo
I just
plays?
can't.
What if Romo has to play against the Seahawks, and then
my
that's
God.
Romo's
And then
last game
oh,
ever
no,
because the Seahawks make him retire?
They break his back again?
I can't think of a
Make him
better.
retire is the best possible outcome right there.
I know, seriously. I want to thank everybody for watching. For Robert Mays and Danny Kelly, I am Chris Ryan. This has been Talking Football Live, presented by Miller Lite, and we will be back with you some other time. Kevin Clark will probably be back yet better soon.
What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.